stated that even if he surpasses the human standard of a 7th circle mage, he still won't be a match for him. Ash falls down, tries to get up, and says he should have fled when he was given the chance. Now he will end up dying here. It is mentioned that with the last high elf, Olympus, dead, the elves will lose their leader once again. Berber assures him not to worry, stating that soon he will enter the world tree, kill all the other elves, turn them undead, and then the undead elf army will have a new leader. He uses the magical circle and bids farewell, saying it was a pleasure to meet him. Suddenly, Princess throws an ice spear. They both pause, and Ash asks if there is someone else beside them in the Tower of Trials. Princess Asheru Ben Britton screams and says now is the time to run. Ash looks at them, and she urges him to run quickly, mentioning that they will buy him some time. Seta says he thinks they better worry about themselves too, noting that the Lick's mana energy has changed. Berber uses his magic and asks if he still has not gotten rid of the small fires yet, stating that he's making him clean up this mess. He says let him use this chance to show those people, the Death Monarch, the strongest creature in the Middle Realm. He employs his magic to unveil his true self, Death, and the legendary undead. The bone dragon materializes and advances to engage them. Seta inquires about the mysterious figure and wonders how he managed to summon such a creature. Princess Asheru Ben Britton glances back and declares that it's game over if they are captured, so they should just run. The bone dragon pursues them, prompting Seta to turn and approach the stranger, questioning his actions. He responds, asking if she doesn't see the danger, and asserts that they cannot outrun a dark entity like that. He plans to lure the creature away, advising them to escape to a distant location. Activating the twin cyclone power, he confronts the dragon. The creature howls and obliterates his cyclone. Shocked, he questions whether it just broke through 7th class magic. Undeterred, he utilizes wind wall magic for another attack, shattering everything in its path. She calls out to him. Meanwhile, Zephyros falls to the ground and Joshua Sanders stands nearby, instructing him to go to the magic tower and inform Evergrant to wait there because he is coming for him. Growing angry, Joshua uses his magic and admits that Zephyros is skilled. Nevertheless, he declares that Zephyros should wait and watch, as he will repay him for all the humiliation he has endured. Forming a magic ball, Joshua asserts that Zephyros is not the only special person in this world, and that he too will face adversity one day. Instructing the lifting of the magic obstruction barrier, Joshua tells everyone to return to the magic tower. Responding, Joshua Sanders states that it is not his turn to fall. Rather, it is Zephyros's turn. Observing a door behind him, Joshua asks if it leads to the next floor. Approaching the door, he expresses anticipation about meeting Iselin soon. Upon entering the door, he is surprised to encounter his clone, Lukia, and asks if this is the trial for this floor. Wondering if he has to fight himself, Lukia explains that it is a doppelganger, a perfect imitation created by God himself. Joshua Sanders raises one leg and arm, and Lukia mimics the same movements. He mentions that he is unsure if he can sense it, but he can. At this energy level, he is at the kingdom rank, essentially. He is the doppelganger king. Joshua Sanders acknowledges that a doppelganger is fascinating enough, but a king adds an interesting dimension. He emphasizes the need for caution, stating that a dark being at this level does not belong in a place like this. In response, Joshua Sanders queries why such a monster exists in this location and refrains from explaining that it's to preserve the race. Subsequently, he moves to attack with a spear. Observing this, Joshua Sanders identifies the technique as magic spear arts, first formation, and counterattacks with a lightning strike. An explosion ensues, and Joshua Sanders is astonished to see the doppelganger copying even the magic spear arts. He asserts that he is not at the kingdom rank for no reason and recounts defeating a clueless lizard 2,000 years ago. Inquiring if by lizard he means a dragon, Joshua Sanders expresses disbelief that he won against a dragon. The doppelganger explains that's the extent of a doppelganger's power, they possess almost infinite stamina. He advances to attack, employing magic spear arts, second stage, second formation, and a violent gale. He explains that his powers replicate the opponent's abilities exactly as they are at the time of replication. Joshua Sanders, bewildered, asks when he copied his abilities. He suggests it likely happened the moment he entered this floor. Joshua Sanders questions if he can even use Bronto's abilities. Unfazed, he activates Bronto's Wrath of Sugahak magic, asserting that no matter how well he mimics him, he can't defeat the original. He's a fake. A sizable explosion occurs. Lukia intervenes, using a spear to halt the magic attack. He utters an incantation, the spell, the body forms the earth, the soul forms the sky. Magic Spear Arts, Stage 6 Forked Tree. He then attacks with the spear. Employing a protection shield, Joshua Sanders defends himself. He continues his assault, casting a spell and declaring, "This spearhead points to heaven, this spearhead is headed to the earth." Magic Spear Arts, Stage 7, Creation of Heaven and Earth. Meanwhile, Ash employs Stone Rain magic, while Princess Asheru Ben Britain uses Ice Wall to attack the Bone Dragon. Seta utilizes Fire Magic Star for an attack and mentions that they still have a shot left. Zeers approaches, addressing him as the Burn player and commenting on the lengthy name. He attacks with magic. Princess Asheru Ben Britain and Ash attempt to halt the Bone Dragon, with Ash noting that the spell is not working at all. Princess Asheru Ben Britain screams, casting a spell. Berber notices Ash and remarks that it seems they have more fellow passengers, adding that thanks to him, the ride won't be lonely. He uses his hand to press against his neck from a distance and states that it's a journey to the afterlife. Ash screams in pain. Princess Asheru Ben Britain employs Frost Nova magic to attack Berber and freeze him. She then uses an ice spear to attack him again, but Berber uses his magic to unfreeze himself, commenting on the weakness of the magic spell and commending them for coming this far with it. He retaliates by attacking the princess with magic, causing her extreme pain and her dress shatters. She casts the breath of the northerly winds, freezing even flames with the purest blue mana in the entire wind world. Berber acknowledges the admirability of how she endured his attack and declares that he will place her right by his side as a lick. He envelops her with magic, uttering "long for strength in death." Ash intervenes, telling him to stop. Berber insists that they should let them live, emphasizing that the conflict is between them, and he has already done enough. The Bone Dragon attacks him, causing him to fall. Berber asserts that he knows all too well that without power, one has no choice but to surrender. He challenges Joshua Sanders, stating that he hasn't realized that after all these years. Berber attacks the princess, declaring that if Joshua Sanders wants to achieve his goals, he must gain strength by any means necessary, even if it means selling his soul to the devil. The Bone Dragon presses Ash with its hand, prompting her to exclaim, "What the hell?" Suddenly, the floor explodes, throwing Ash away. Berber inquires why the floor is splitting apart. He looks back and sees the clone of Joshua Sanders standing there, identifying him as the Spear Knight. Ash urges the clone to come back to his senses. Seta comments on the clone's increasingly amazing feats and asks how many floors he pierced through all at once. The dragon moves to attack Joshua Sanders, and Seta warns him to watch out. The dragon unleashes extreme light magic on Joshua Sanders, causing him to fall unconscious. Princess Asheru Ben Britain exclaims, "What the hell?" Berber expresses disbelief that this is where Joshua Sanders ran off after being chased out by the Avalon Empire. He questions if Joshua came here with the Tower of Trial's final reward in mind. Berber suggests that, whatever the case, Joshua must be in that state because he got greedy to reach the highest floor quickly, finding him pathetic. Attempting to attack Princess Asheru Ben Britain with magic, Berber is interrupted when the real Joshua Sanders arrives, breaking his shield, attacking his hand from behind, and questioning who exactly is so pathetic. Approaching the princess, Ash acknowledges that the Berber they saw in the fourth prince's secret basement was indeed fake. She is shocked to see him and asks if there are two Joshua Sanders and what the hell is happening. Berber sees this as an opportunity to get rid of all the troublemakers right here and now. He employs Dark Cannon magic to attack, but Joshua Sanders counters with his spear, employing Magic Spear Arts Stage 7. He throws his spear, thinking of the spell creation of heaven and earth. Berber calls him a fool, stating that Dark Cannon is the highest grade black magic and that he cannot overcome it no matter what. He questions if Joshua Sanders thinks a pact with a sealed demon can block all demonic energy. He attacks him with light magic. Berber exclaims that the highest grade black magic just disappeared. Moreover, the ceiling has been pierced, and he asks how the hell did that happen. All the black clouds vanish, and they find themselves on fresh green grass. Princess Asheru Ben Britain observes her healed hand and notes that her body has recovered. Berber questions if the ceiling did not get pierced because Joshua Sanders changed the environment by breathing life into it, wondering if that is the power of the gods. Princess Asheru Ben Britain attacks him, and he insists that this is impossible. He summons dark forces, declaring that he commands them now and will confront them with all his might. He asserts that they, too, must fight him with all their strength. Joshua Sanders responds that if he wants, he will show it to him, readying his team for the fight. He commands his army to charge. The leader of the dark forces commands his army to charge, and they move forward to attack. Cases arrives and declares that the sun's sword shall rain judgment upon all of them, commanding everyone to kneel before his lord, Joshua Sanders. Berber summons the bone dragon and dragon breath to attack, but Joshua Sanders counters with magic spear arts, level 6, targeting the dragon. He employs forked tree magic, and with a command, the dragon falls down and dies, leaving everyone shocked. Princess Asheru Ben Britain remarks that he just knocked out the bone dragon. Ash adds that Joshua punched a hole into crevasse. Seta points out that if the people of the continent saw this, it would lead to a huge uprising. Asheru asks what he means by that. Seta explains that wielding black magic and creating the undead is forbidden throughout the continent, and having a whole army of undead, especially led by the person praised as the continent's greatest spear knight, would horrify and betray people's trust in Joshua's abilities. She predicted that the whole continent would publicly expel him. Asheru tells her not to worry about such things, asserting that once the people of the continent witness it for themselves, they will realize how great Joshua is. Seta questions what they will find out, and Asheru responds that they will see what a great guy Joshua is, causing everyone to fall in love with him. He suggests making her admiration for Joshua less obvious, to which she agrees before she disappears. Ash declares an end to the small talk and urges everyone to focus. He points out that he doesn't know what magic he is using, but their master keeps landing decisive blows on Zeraf and quickly recovers, making it seem like he's immortal. He mentions that he is no different from his undead army. Kazes employs his magic to attack the knights and reflects on how, although they might not be death knights like him, their resurrection speed is exceptionally quick. However, he is not displaying any signs of exhaustion. The knights prepare to attack, but Kazes stops their assault with his sword. He notes that the undead army, initially dashing in recklessly, is now in formation, being commanded by someone else. This doesn't seem like Lord Joshua's doing, and there is likely another lick involved. Kazes realizes that if he keeps taking hits like this, he will eventually lose. He uses an ice wall to protect himself. Seta points out that a lick's weak point is its source of life, the life vessel. Kazes speculates that Joshua probably hid it somewhere only he knows. Seta emphasizes that unless they get rid of the life vessel, the Lick and his army will keep resurrecting endlessly. She adds that they will become a truly immortal army that doesn't get hurt or die. However, even with Joshua present, they can't harm them. Kazes thinks about Joshua's limited mana, demonic energy, and stamina, realizing that they will eventually run out. Before that happens, they must find the Lick's life vessel. On the other side, Joshua's clone attacks Berber with his spear, but he holds his own spear and remarks that Joshua may possess divine powers, but his body is only human. As his mana and demonic energy gradually drop, a gap arises. He snatches the spear and mentions that Joshua seems mistaken about something, asking if he thinks he doesn't know he is hiding his life vessel. He recalls their previous encounter in the fourth prince's secret basement room, stating that he only tried sealing Joshua using the annihilating black sphere because he didn't know where Joshua hid his life vessel. However, this time he was foolish enough to send all his forces, allowing him to find out. He questions if he kept attacking despite knowing all that. He confirms, explaining that he was buying time to find his life vessel and, more precisely, locating the Lick who's hiding it. Observing a soul with a life vessel, Joshua identifies Zelen. Berber screams and instructs Zelen to run. Ash contemplates the situation. He takes up his sword and asks if they believe he cannot be found hiding behind that veil, declaring this to be the end for them. Zelen attempts to protect the life vessel. He states that he is going to cut down the opponent all at once. Berber asks how a lowly loser dares to point the sword at him. He is attacked, and it is declared that he is the one who must disappear. Joshua employs magic spear arts, specifically level 5, 4th form, and a true lightning strike to attack the life vessel ball, stating it is too late. His life vessel is screamed, and he falls, transforming into ash. Joshua Sanders declares that it's over. He states that this can't be. He held the power to end the empire in his hands, yet. Joshua Sanders places his foot on him and remarks, "They say trees are unsparingly generous toward humans." He acknowledges that humans cut down countless trees and burn forests for their self-interest. However, irrespective of that, trees provide them with fruit, shade for comfortable rest, and even fresh air, albeit now for someone else, but for those who harm them. He questions the nature of such nonsense. Joshua Sanders clarifies that he means this is what his existence means to him. Referring to the huge undead army he painstakingly created, he declares his intention to take it away. He asserts that he is the unconditionally generous tree. Ash approaches Zelen, holding him in his arms, and questions Berber about why he had to go to such extremes. He expresses that Berber's actions have affected his one and only daughter, asking why he went so far as to turn her into a lick. The story transitions to a flashback, where a lady identifies Zelen and reveals herself as an old friend of his father. She extends her hand, apologizing sincerely for everything that transpired. Returning to the present, Ash queries who would subject their own child to such a fate, stating that Berber might as well have killed her twice. He advises against being naive and questions if Berber is not in the same situation as him. When she asks for clarification, he explains that, just like how humans expelled the elven race due to their impure desires, he too was betrayed and ruined by humans. He questions why they must endure such pain and despair when they have done nothing wrong. Ash contends that it is because they lacked strength, talent, status, power, nothing. He reveals his longing for absolute power that no one could surpass, an army capable of annihilating the entire empire, and a loyal army solely dedicated to him, not the humans. He asserts that Zelen understood him, expressing that the child also desired to be a part of his family. Ash explains that Berber needed Yggdrasil's life source for a specific purpose to use it in creating an immortal army. Berber acknowledges this, confirming that it was a method to easily attain great strength and establish a contract with the greatest supreme demon possessing the most evil of powers. He explains that, as a genius mage, even if he were to offer his soul, he could not guarantee the appearance of a top-level demon for a contract unless he had a sacrifice that they would covet. Ash reflects on Berber's actions, stating that he has truly been blinded by revenge, betraying those who cared about him and subjecting his child to suffering. He questions whether he thinks this is the right course of action. Berber responds, recalling that he once mentioned that creating a union of the elven race is his dream. He questions whether it would be possible as long as humans exist. Joshua Sanders responds that it's not exactly impossible. After all, there are people who realize their wrongdoings and restore the forests as well. The entire body of Berber transforms into dust, leaving only eyes behind. He asks if that is true, asserting that humans do not change. They get consumed by desire, coveting, and destroying everything. He claims that those who carry the same will as him are countless, especially if it's that guy. Before completing his sentence, he turns into dust and completely disappears, finally bringing an end to Berber's long life. However, instead of the thrill of successful revenge, Baraburu leaves Joshua with a sense of unease. Seta declares that he can't continue, feeling too exhausted. The bone dragon launches an attack on them. Princess Asheru Ben Britain encourages him not to give up, insisting that he must hang in there and wake up. Seta expresses his frustration, stating that merely hanging in there is not enough. He mentions the bone dragon respawning, emphasizing that unless the Lick's life vessel is eliminated, there's no chance of winning. Joshua Sanders arrives and commands everyone to stop. He declares this as his command for Berber's undead army, instructing them to obey him and kneel before him. The entire undead army complies, bowing down in front of him. He directs the bone dragon to come to him. Seta witnesses this and considers it impossible as Joshua Sanders successfully subdues the enormous bone dragon. The bone dragon approaches Joshua Sanders and the undead army begins to transform into dust. Joshua Sanders collects their dust with his hand, leaving everyone shocked. Joshua Sanders reflects on the unexpected and anticlimactic end to Zeraf, expressing regret over losing such a devoted subordinate. Princess Asheru Ben Britain inquires about message magic and questions if there is someone else present. Joshua Sanders reveals that it's Asmodeus. She asks by Asmodeus, meaning the top-level demon with whom the Lick had signed a contract before. Asmodeus arrives and states that even if it is like this, it is nice to see him again. He informs him that when he showed up, he felt like dancing. Seta looks at him and thinks it's really him. He looks exactly like the Asmodeus he has only ever heard about, and he just shows up in the middle realm out of the blue. He asks what is his motive. He states that ever since the sudden disappearance of the demon god, the 8 demon kings with the powers of sin have battled endlessly for the demon god's seat. He mentions that he was desperately hoping someone would break the tenuous balance they had formed. Of course, it would not be easy. After all, breaking the balance would take someone with power at least equal to theirs. Deep down, he hoped he was that someone. He explains that he descended into the middle realm to regain his lost glory, despite the risks. Amidst all that, he showed up like a miracle before him. He mentions that with the power he knows he possesses, he can break the demon realm's balance and create upheaval anew. He adds that it's a shame he does not have to do it himself. Ash wonders if the master is on the same level as the 8 demon kings, and if achieving such a level is even possible with human abilities. He considers the possibility of an archangel reincarnating as a human. Joshua Sanders inquires if the reason for Asmodeus's appearance is to restore his former glory. He questions how he can believe that and whether Asmodeus is not the covetous demon of greed. He asks why Asmodeus doesn't reveal the true purpose of his appearance. Asmodeus responds that if Joshua is so curious, he should come find him. He mentions that he will be waiting on the hill where the black moon rises. Asmodeus describes the light that once shone the brightest of all and the sole existence of darkness. The princess contemplates both light and soul darkness. Asmodeus uses his magic and declares that it is his last gift to Joshua, eagerly awaiting their next meeting. Joshua Sanders observes the magical circle and questions if it's the Seal of Covenants. Seta also asks about the Seal of Covenants and whether it's not what demons use to form contracts with humans. He wonders what Asmodeus is scheming if he plans to sign that Spear Knight to another demon. Ash remarks that he is not sure, but he believes nothing good will come out of forming a contract with a demon. Joshua Sanders moves forward and Ash calls out to him, asking what he is doing. He states that there's no telling what kind of demons will show up to bind him to a contract. He advises to come back, as it's too dangerous. Joshua Sanders goes and stands between magical circles, asserting that he does not care. He claims that whoever shows up will become the prey, not him. He adds that even if one of the 8 demon kings appears, he will still accept the contract. By standing in the magical circle, an explosion occurs, shocking everyone. Ash comments that at this rate, if a demon king actually descends here, the entire middle realm will turn into hell. He urges him to stop this now. Joshua Sanders asks if he is here. A giant red light emerges from the aside and explodes. Seta remarks that the whole place is brimming with demonic energy, wondering which demon it could be. Princess suggests not telling him that an actual demon king has descended. Ash says that's entirely possible with this much energy, and he's at least the same level as Asmodeus. A baby dragon emerges from the magical circle, surprising everyone. Princess exclaims that it is too cute. Seta remarks that it's no wonder they say empty vessels make the most noise. This is not even funny. She blushes upon seeing Joshua Sanders and his clone together. She thinks she can't believe there are 2 Joshuas, and one of them is a doppelganger, not real. Regardless, it's way too heart-fluttering. Seta reflects on how he had no idea a legendary creature like the doppelganger was in the Tower of Trials. He notices Ash holding his arm and asks how long he plans on clinging to his back. He suggests it's bothering him and asks him to get off. He questions Ash about the strange Kukiuing creature, expressing that he can sense it's not a normal demon. Seta responds that they will find out eventually, but first they need to do what needs to be done. He contemplates how to deal with Evergrant. He addresses Joshua Sanders as a Spear Knight and suggests they don't need to climb the Tower of Trials anymore, so let's get out of here. Joshua Sanders agrees, but expresses curiosity about the Tower of Trials' final reward. The Black Dragon Crevasse arrives and questions if now is the time to be leisurely climbing the tower. He mentions that no one has been allowed on the last floor yet, and he is the master of the soul darkness. Seta asks how long he has been in front of them, expressing that he did not sense him at all. Ash admonishes him as a foolish human, warning that unless he wants to get in huge trouble, he better show some respect first. He introduces Crevasse as the Black Dragon. Seta reflects on the presence of a black dragon and a top-level demon, wondering what is going on in the middle realm. Joshua Sanders asks if climbing is not allowed and questions who decided that. Black Dragon Crevasse states that it's not the time to argue with him, predicting that soon the entire continent will be bathed in blood. He includes the elf forest and the towns where they were born and raised as no exceptions. Crevasse explains that now that they know he is the sole master of darkness, they will have a lot to talk about. However, if they ignore his advice and continue to climb the tower, it will be difficult for their relationship to remain as it is now. He tells them to make a choice, either continue climbing the tower or return to their place and maintain their relationship. Meanwhile, at a mansion outside of Accardi, Vanessa Pawn Agnes, the sister of Emperor Marcus Duke Agnes's wife, sits with Ashir van Britten Lucia, the sister of Emperor Marcus Duke Agnes's second wife, holding a wine glass. She asks if it is not fascinating and mentions that they lived in the same palace, yet they have never met. She acknowledges that they have different mothers, and she was not at the royal palace back then, but she is still glad to see her like this. Vanessa suggests that they get along now. Ashir responds with an agreement, admitting it was her mistake not to call her by her real name, Ashir van Britten. She adds anyway, let's get along. Lucia insists she has no idea what Vanessa Pawn Agnes is talking about and emphasizes that she is just a maid. Vanessa Pawn Agnes counters that she knows everything and urges her not to pretend. She understands that Lucia pretended to have memory loss out of concern for her one and only child. Vanessa expresses her intention to help Lucia and suggests that all she needs to do is convince Duke Agnes to announce Babel as the official heir. She explains that in return, she will ask Emperor Marcus to pardon Joshua's crimes, as she can't go on living without seeing her one and only son. At that moment, Chiffon knocks at the door and informs Vanessa Pawn Agnes that there's big trouble. He asks if he may come in for a moment, and she grants permission, asking what's wrong. Chiffon enters, keeping his head down in respect in front of her, and reports that Emperor Marcus has just declared that the current 5 great ducal families will be reduced to 3. Vanessa expresses surprise and asks for clarification. Chiffon adds that, worse yet, Duke Agnes is among the dukes who will be cut out. Vanessa incredulously questions what he is talking about and inquires about Duke Agnes. She asks if Arden did not take any action while Emperor Marcus was making these decisions. He explains that he heard this information from the royal palace, suggesting that perhaps Duke Agnes was too heartbroken about young Master Joshua being banished from the Avalon Empire, and they say he has gone underground. Consequently, no one knows the Duke's current whereabouts. Suddenly, some knights enter the room through the window by breaking it, startling everyone. Chiffon asks what is happening. The intelligence organization directly under the Avalon Emperor, Black Wind, states that he is not interested in a lowly knight like him. He is here for Princess Ashir van Britten. He instructs her to come with them. Meanwhile, someone releases Duke Agnes from his handcuffs and presents him in front of the king. The king expresses that he is truly heartbroken, commenting on a father suffering the consequences of raising his child improperly. He remarks on the blemish upon the honorable reputation of Avalon's pride, the Black God. Despite this, he acknowledges that, in a way, like a father, like a son. He stands up and assures Duke Agnes not to worry. He mentions that Duke Agnes is a knight praised by all. He states that he will give him a chance to beg for forgiveness and demonstrate his loyalty towards him. As a bonus, he hints at the possibility of forgiving Duke Agnes for what he did to his sister Ashir. He recalls the act of kidnapping a royal and making her give birth to his son, acknowledging the severe punishment for those who harm the royal family. He emphasizes that Duke Agnes shouldn't claim ignorance, as he went through so much to protect his dukedom. He urges him to put an end to the rebellion, prove his loyalty, and ensure the safety of the house of Duke Agnes. He asks if Duke Agnes should not protect it in honor of his deceased parents, at least. The story goes back about 40 years ago when Marion Pesseros, the second daughter of Baron Pesseros, met the crown prince of the Avalon Empire, the father of the current Emperor Marcus. He mentions that they have not met before and asks which family she belongs to. Marion elegantly picks her frock and greets, introducing herself as Marion, the second daughter of the Baroness of Pesseros, to the son of Avalon, Crown Prince Douglas van Britten. Crown Prince Douglas inquires if that is not a family at the edge of the West, expressing surprise that there would be such beauty in such an insignificant place. He holds her face and asks what she thinks. He suggests that if she becomes his wife, she will get the opportunity to live in a palace like the one they are in. Above all, he promises to grant her whatever she wishes. Marion looks at his face in surprise. A girl remarks that Marion must be loving the crown prince's attention. Another girl asks how many wives he has already and questions if this is not the fourth one. The other girl inquires about a powerless baron and questions who would turn down such a rare opportunity. Marion Pesseros thinks that whether she accepts or declines, she has no future. Even if she marries him, once the crown prince loses his affection for her, the rest of his wives won't leave him alone. She contemplates that, on the other hand, he will surely harm her family if she refuses. She wonders what she should do and how she can respond. The eldest son of the Duke of Agnes, Tobin von Agnes, arrives and apologizes to the crown prince. However, he states that Marion is already betrothed to him. The crown prince questions if she's betrothed to Tobin. Tobin von Agnes confirms it, explaining that Marion grew up with him and understands him better than anyone else. He reveals that, not wanting to miss out, he proposed to her first, and they are now engaged. He kindly requests the crown prince to rescind his request. After that, he reflects that time passes, buds sprout, leaves fall, and the warmth of spring arrives again. Eventually, Marion Pesseros gives birth to a boy. Tobin von Agnes stands nearby, holding the child, and commends her, expressing his gratitude. He remarks on their healthy son. She mentions that he looks just like Tobin and predicts he will be quite the ladies' man when he grows up. Tobin asks if she has a name in mind for their child. She replies that she does. Describing a person who is not swayed by their surroundings and upholds their convictions, she expresses her hope that, like a god, his heart transcends that of a human. She suggests that a name suited for someone like that would be the ancient word for God, Arden. She wants to name their child Arden. The scene shifts to 13 years later at the Avalon Royal Academy, where Arden von Agnes fights with Marius van Britten, the eldest son of Emperor Douglas van Britten. Marius van Britten remarks that he never thought he'd cross swords with him here. Arden von Agnes expresses that it is a great honor to compete against Marius van Britten, and he shall learn a lesson from this. He recalls a memory when his father advised him to fight moderately and then lose. Arden reflects that it's unprecedented, and there's no point in winning if his opponent is the prince himself, so it won't matter. During the fight, Marius van Britten attacks Arden and questions how he dares to be distracted. Arden retaliates with a sword. Marius van Britten verbally abuses him, calling him low breed and accusing him of pulling tricks. Arden asks what he just said. Marius van Britten clarifies that he called him low-bred and questions if his mother is not a filthy slave who offered her body to the head of the great family in the name of her family. He moves to attack again, mentioning that, without knowing her lowly place, she refuses his majesty, the emperor's offer, and his mother is ungrateful and dirty. Arden von Agnes attacks Marius's arm and questions how he dares to disrespect his mother. He declares that he won't let him get away with it. Douglas van Britten screams and asks Arden if he is in his right mind, telling him to stop right now, but Arden moves to attack again. Marcus von Britten, Prince of the Avalon Empire, intervenes and stops the attack. He remarks that Arden is amusing and questions if he can handle it, emphasizing that anyone who harms royalty won't end well. He advises Arden to kneel and beg for forgiveness now and not be arrogant. After a while, Tobin von Agnes stands in front of Majesty and expresses shame. He offers to take the punishment instead of his ill-raised child. Arden von Agnes stands beside his mother, restrained with ropes. Tobin von Agnes kneels down and pleads for mercy. Douglas von Britten questions if he is not overestimating himself. He points out that even if Prince Marius spoke inappropriately, Tobin has crippled him, making him unable to use his arm again. Douglas mentions that a prince is also part of him, and the crime of intentionally harming the dignity of royalty could be punished as treason. He suggests that Marius's life is enough compensation. He asks if the Agnes Duchy is not a pillar of the Avalon Empire and, considering Tobin's past devotion to the empire, proposes letting the parent take the blame for the child's wrongdoing. However, he decides that it will be Marion von Agnes, Arden's mother, who will serve as a maid in the palace instead. After a while, Arden von Agnes expresses his apologies to his father, stating that even if he objects, he can't accept his mother taking punishment in his place. He resolves to bring his mother back himself and asks what he can do. He acknowledges their lack of power in the current situation. Arden thinks that Tobin's words deeply pierced Aiden's heart, prompting him to harbor a grand plan to grow stronger and enter the palace where his mother was held. He reflects that later, as an adult, Aiden became a master desired by many knights. He became the youngest master of the empire, and indeed of the entire continent. However, his mother passed away before finally leaving the royal household and returning to Aiden. After a while, Armstrong, a knight of the Agnes ducal house, approaches Prince Aiden. He mentions that with the deterioration of Emperor Douglas's health, a bloody civil war among the princes for the throne seems imminent. Armstrong sees this turbulent atmosphere as a golden opportunity for revenge. Aidan agrees, stating that now is the time for revenge, and he will personally destroy the treacherous Briton royalty. Aidan reflects on his vow of revenge at his mother Miriam's grave, with his first target being Princess Asheru von Britain, who was the Lucia they knew. Lucia sits down, covering her face, and everything around her starts to destroy. She lifts her face and sees Arden coming towards her. After a while, an A-class knight of the Avalon Empire and a B-class knight of the Avalon Empire observe the destruction and burning in the forest. The B-class knight notes the precise cuts despite the burns, indicating exceptional skill, and suggests that there was another after the princess. The A-class knight emphasizes the need to find her at all costs. After a while at the mansion, the princess wakes up and calls for help. She looks around and asks where she is. Arden stands near a window and comments on the peculiarity that he initially did not recognize her. He notes that her blue hair is uncharacteristic of the Britons, but the blood flowing in her veins remains unchanged. The princess asks what he means by Britain, where she is, and how she remembers. She recalls some knights coming to attack her and being saved by someone. She looks at Arden and identifies him as the one who saved her from that monster. After a while, a doctor checks her eyes and suggests that she seems to have suffered a great mental shock. Witnessing her first murder might have caused her to lose her memory. Armstrong expresses concern about the seriousness of her condition if she can't even remember who she is. Arden reassures them, stating that her Briton bloodline remains, ensuring her worth. He instructs Armstrong to go to the royal court and keep a close watch. By now, Prince Marius' failure to expand his forces due to the thwarted political marriage should be apparent, so they need to observe how the prince's power struggle unfolds. Armstrong agrees to follow his command. Armstrong takes his horse and starts his journey. Meanwhile, an A-class knight and a B-class knight hide behind a tree, observing him. The scene shifts to night when the princess sits in her room and expresses her inability to recall anything, not even her name or who she is. Just then, someone calls her from outside the room. She asks who he is. The B-class knight opens the door, stating that he has been looking for her for a while and assures her not to worry as he will take care of her now. She gets scared and tells him not to come any closer. He reassures her, saying it's okay and that he is there to help her. However, she recalls a bad memory, screams, and expresses her fear of dying. The B-class knight moves forward and quickly covers her face. He shows her a dagger, telling her to wake up, as making noise won't do any good. He urges her, for everyone's sake, to disappear quietly from there. He moves the dagger near her eyes, but Arden arrives, holds his hand, and questions which prince sent him. Arden asserts that it can't be the first one. He asks why someone like him, a well-known figure, is doing this, and if he is trying to get involved in the prince's struggle. An A-class knight comes to attack Arden, claiming that the princess has been abandoned and all the other princes wish for her death. He states that if Arden is trying to help the first prince, he has chosen the wrong side. Arden retaliates, attacking both of them and engaging in a fight. He manages to kill both of them and reflects that, apart from those two, it does not seem like anyone else is following. Considering the current situation, it appears that the other princes have unexpectedly joined forces to eliminate the first prince, Marius. Arden contemplates that if Marius dies, not only his close associates but also Princess Asheru, born from the same empress as Marius, will be targeted for elimination. He observes the princess falling unconscious and concludes that he can't keep such a risk factor with him any longer. Since the first princess is about to be eliminated, Arden decides it might be better to target another prince now. She cries and says she does not want to die, she wants to live. He looks at her and recalls a memory from his childhood when he told his mother that he would become a knight, an awesome knight who protects the helpless. She hugged him and expressed her gladness, stating that she was sure he would be a great knight, a knight with principles unshaken by his surroundings. He hits his sword on the floor and thinks that he doesn't believe he will ever become a knight like that. He sincerely apologizes to his mother. He reflects that the first prince, Marius, was murdered, just as Arden predicted, by the one who guarded his side and was the last in line. After a while, at Emperor Marcus's, he states that this was when Emperor Marcus's bloody reign effectively began. Following that, Marcus eliminated every one of his competitors, including his brothers and all other relatives. He hunted down and purged all those who bore the blood of Britain. He mentions that when there was not a single one of his brothers left who bore the surname Britain, he was finally crowned the emperor. He adds that Ashir van Britten's whereabouts were forever forgotten. The scene shifts to Lucia standing wearing a servant dress, and Arden comes there. She congratulates young Master Arden for earning the title of the youngest superhuman. He sees his father and asks if he has been well. His father coughs and acknowledges his return, expressing gratitude. He mentions that thanks to Arden, the reputation of the house of Duke Agnes shines brighter every day, and then falls down from the chair. After a while, Tobin von Agnes lies on the bed and Arden sits nearby. A doctor stands there and mentions that he was only waiting for the day Arden would return. Tobin von Agnes hung in there with great difficulty, and it must be a shock to Arden, but he must brace himself. Tobin von Agnes hands a letter to Arden and instructs him to take it, as it's a letter from the royal family. Arden asks about the royal family. Tobin von Agnes explains that indeed, they are holding a coronation ceremony for the new emperor soon, and they also want to plan an arranged marriage with them. He acknowledges that he knows what Arden is thinking, but emphasizes that the path of his life lies in the family's survival. Even if the royal family's bloody war with each other has weakened them, they still don't have the strength to defeat them. He says Tobin was well aware that Arden was plotting revenge against the royal family. However, even if the battles between the princes had weakened the emperor's power, Duke Agnes was nowhere near powerful enough to defy royal authority. He adds that Arden was well aware of this and relentlessly worked toward gaining power. With martial abilities strong enough to earn him the nickname of the unofficial superhuman, Marcus's strength was beyond Arden's imagination. He mentions that it was way too premature for him to have thought this was the chance for revenge. He asserts that now is the time to bend and grow the family's power and influence, gather people who will help him, and achieve even greater feats than he has so far. He encourages Arden to make the people honor him as a hero, like Avalon's once great former king of the kingdom of Asgard. Arden cries and mentions that Emperor Marcus was well aware of the fact that Duke Agnes was always looking for the chance to revolt against him. He could have had the entire house of Duke Agnes annihilated, but as the days passed, Arden's feats made him a paragon for all knights. He came to be revered as a hero by the people. With royal authority on a rocky road at the time, eliminating the empire's hero would surely earn him the hatred of the people. He says Marcus decided to play it safe and proposed an arranged marriage so he could take over the house of Duke Agnes. Arden, too, had no other way to stop Emperor Marcus, and thus had to accept the arranged marriage until the day he completely crushed the royal Britain family. He mentions that time passed, and a child was born to Arden and Vanessa van Britten, who was married to him in an arranged marriage, and the child clearly was not Arden's. The scene shifts to a party where a yellow-haired man sees Arden von Agnes's wife, Vanessa von Agnes, Marcus van Britten's sister, with her child. He says he knew it the first time he saw young Master Babel. He will be a brave knight just like Duke Agnes, the great master of Avalon, and the house of Duke's future surely looks extremely bright. She agrees, saying he speaks so beautifully, and she thinks the same as well. When their son, Babel, takes over the reins of the house of Duke Agnes after Duke Agnes, the royal family will acknowledge them even more than now. He remarks that Arden stayed silent at Vanessa's words. Vanessa utilized Emperor Marcus's authority to fill the ranks of House Agnes with the Emperor's supporters. As a result, Arden had fewer and fewer allies within House Agnes. The scene shifts and Lucia approaches Arden, holding a tray of tea. She says, "Here's the tea," places the cup and pours the tea. He inquires about the reason for this and tells her that she could leave, asking why she is still here. She responds that she could not leave the man who saved her twice and run away alone. Now it's her turn to come to the rescue, and most of all, she loves that he calls her Lucia. He acknowledges this, expressing that he thought she would not like this name. He holds the cup and notes that the tea smells great. He explains that the only person able to comfort Arden was the blue-haired Briton, though no one considered Lucia a member of the royal Briton family. Consequently, Lucia became his rock in his lonely fight against the Briton crown. He adds sadly that Arden's feelings were not of love, but of loneliness and unease. The scene shifts as Armstrong quickly enters Duke Agnes's room and informs him that they are in trouble. Princess Lucia is pregnant. He mentions that he was definitely very careful in guarding her, but does not know who did this. Duke Agnes asserts that it's his child, leaving Arden shocked as he asks for clarification. Duke Agnes confirms that Lukia is pregnant with his child. More importantly, he asks if Arden heard back from the houses of Rebecca and Pointier. Arden responds that they have responded positively for now, but he is unsure if the two families will cooperate until the end. Duke Agnes dismisses these concerns, stating that for now, they may not trust each other, but in time, it will become a cooperative relationship like no other. Eventually, he believes they will be free of Marcus's grip on their necks, and the tables will turn. Duke Agnes reflects on enduring this pain a bit more, encouraging Lukia to hang in there, along with his soon-to-be-born child. He is determined to avenge her mother and protect the family name. He thinks they are almost there now, just a little more. The story shifts back to the present, and the king instructs him to make a choice: pay the price for his crimes against Ashir van Britten or submit to him. Arden kneels down and declares that he, Arden von Agnes, shall obey the will of Emperor Marcus, the great son of Avalon. The king challenges him to prove those words, offering 200,000 men for him to lead an army and capture Reinhardt, ruled by his son, and present it to him. Only then will he believe him. Arden agrees, stating that he will do as commanded and present Reinhardt at his feet. He privately thinks that this man, making a joke of himself, keeps getting more shameless with age. He dismisses the matter, noting that it doesn't matter since Arden's role is solely to lead the army and charge toward Reinhardt. Arden will occupy Reinhardt, and Duke Trembling will lead an army to the country of magic, the kingdom of Terra. As soon as Terra and Reinhardt are conquered as planned, all of the Empire's forces will be consolidated in one place, the Crandon Great Plains, the border between the two nations. He states once Reinhardt is completely occupied, Arden will lead all his men to the Crandon Great Plains. Arden confirms his agreement with this plan. After a while, Arden von Agnes reflects that, as he thought, Marcus let him go because he took Lukia hostage. If he does not march on Reinhardt, Lukia will be in danger. However, if he marches his army into Reinhardt, a neutral territory, it will be the beginning of a continental war. It's an interesting trick by Marcus. Just then, Armstrong arrives and expresses relief that Arden is safe. As soon as he heard the news, he was on his way to the palace to help, but the knight's order was ambushed. He is shocked to see the state of the place and comments, "No way, this place was attacked too." Arden von Agnes suggests that someone leaked information about Lukia, leading to her kidnapping. Armstrong inquires if everyone who knows about Lukia is dead, except for them. Arden responds that they don't have time to figure that out now. He believes it's time to go through with the plan they have been working on for so long. Armstrong questions if it's not too soon. Arden insists that's exactly why he thinks now is the perfect time. He informs all their allies that the location is the Crandon Great Plains. Just then, Cercerin van Britten, Avalon Empire's princess, arrives and suggests he should leave it at that, as his revolt will fail. Arden inquires about how far her mind sees. She responds that she cannot answer that question, but one thing is certain. In the future she saw that if he goes to the Crandon Great Plains, he will die. She requests that he be Joshua's protector for a little while longer until her memory is fully restored. For that reason, it would be better if he stopped the revolt. Arden remarks that she really does not know Emperor Marcus. He asserts that there's no turning back now, not for him and not for the Emperor. This is the only way for him, no, for them to live. Meanwhile, the king instructs Duke Trembling to strike Terra before going to the magic tower and beheading the traitor Evergrant. He emphasizes that he allowed Evergrant to experiment with the undead, yet he betrayed the Empire and killed Jacqueline. He wants Duke Trembling to set a clear example of the fate that awaits a traitor. Duke Trembling asks for forgiveness, stating that, to his knowledge, Evergrant has already become the continent's first 8th-class mage. At this point, it would be more of a burden, both in terms of time and strategy, to capture the magic tower than the kingdom of Terra. He adds that it could delay their meeting with Duke Agnes at the Great Crandon Plains. He reassures him, stating that the Great Crandon Plains are merely bait to lure Arden in. He has given Arden the chance to stop hesitating. The king asserts that the moment Arden concentrates all his forces on the Great Crandon Plains, he will be in for a big surprise. Duke Trembling admits with all due respect that his lacking mind does not understand what the king means. He remarks on the ridiculousness of politics, stating that even in politics, there are too many old foxes who don't do as they are supposed to. He assumes Arden is trying to mimic Rigveda's retreat right now. He explains that before the founding of the current Avalon Empire, the kingdom that enjoyed the height of power in history was the Asgard Kingdom. He mentions Asgard's last king, Kunir, who had a long-time friend known as the kingdom's mightiest swordsman of that era, Rigveda. Similar to Arden today, Rigveda was the most feared being amongst his enemies and was hailed as a hero by his allies. However, Rigveda suddenly retreated from his path to write the history of his conquests. He destroyed the Avalon kingdom with his own hands, killed King Kunir, and built the Avalon Empire of today. Rigveda's retreat successfully ended in a coup d'état. He reflects on Arden being a terrifying individual, driven solely by vengeance for his mother, and keeping a dark truth inside himself for decades. He predicts that if Arden gets his revenge in the form of a historical revolution, he will be hailed as a hero and may even become an emperor, just as Rigveda had done in the past. However, he emphasizes that history won't repeat itself. That time has already passed. He declares that he will prove in the morning that the name of Agnes can never surpass Britain. After a while at the Magic Tower, the Magic Tower Master announces that the door to a new world, where the Magic Tower will rule the entire continent, is now wide open. In the approaching continental war, victory shall be theirs. Scorpino arrives and requests them to wait. He inquires about the situation, and Scorpino explains that they failed to eliminate Seta because of the sudden appearance of that spear knight from Avalon. He is asked if Joshua has arrived, and Scorpino replies that if given one more chance, he will lead the mages again. Moving away, he dismisses the idea, stating that Joshua, who defeated one of the 7 magicians at the age of 10, is no match for him. He employs his magic and states that they have someone reliable in the Tower of Trials, so they will probably take care of it. They have other things to do now. He opens a portal gate and announces that he has found the Forest of Elves. The 3,000 mages currently assembled here will go there with him. He declares that they will retrieve the primordial stone, Stormwind, which sustains the world tree Yggdrasil. He will stay here on standby in case something happens and will heal the injured mages. Scorpino agrees and reflects that the thing the elves call Tempest is the primordial stone. He moves toward the gate, waves to the people, and declares that the gates have opened. He urges everyone to take over the legendary world tree Yggdrasil and receive the blessing of mana to begin a new era of magic. He enters the portal. After a while, at the Forest of Elves world tree Yggdrasil, a stone starts cracking. Miss Freya asks why Tempest is jolting so unstably and what it is reacting to. Ash arrives and informs them that they are in trouble. An unknown gate has opened in the sky. She asks if it is an invasion and instructs to arm all elves who can fight, just in case. The portal gate opens and huge light rays emerge, starting to destroy the tree. A man states that the forest's protective barrier has been destroyed and instructs everyone to move to protect their people in the village. They begin running from there. The Magic Tower Master arrives with his team and declares that he commands the mages of the Magic Tower to wipe out the forest in front of him, leaving not a blade of grass behind. Meanwhile, Joshua Sanders and his team ride on a dragon, and Kane remarks that this is not a dream. He can't believe he is riding a black dragon, feeling like he has become part of a legendary Dragon Knight order. Princess Asheru Ben Britton comments that a Dragon Knight order wouldn't be the first and asks if something like a Dragon Mage doesn't have a better feel to it. Joshua responds, asking who cares about being the first as long as it's meaningful. Ash observes that he looks a little disappointed for someone saying that. He replies that she is right about that. Their lord is not exactly someone who can be defined as a knight. He uses black magic like it's nothing, and they wonder what they should even call him. Joshua Sanders examines the letter, and his clone mentions that it is from that princess with the mind's eye. He asks if that is why she knows so much about his birth, finding it amusing. He thinks he finally understands what Count Ares said in the Reinhardt Canyon. Recalling Berber's warning that he must know one thing, to beware of his father, the so-called Black God of Avalon, who is way more dangerous than the current emperor, he contemplates a possible connection between his father and Emperor Marcus. His clone questions if, at this rate, his father is not the one who will end up in danger, and if he is just going to let this happen. Joshua Sanders believes it's bound to happen anyway, and only sooner. Seta inquires about why he seems so serious, mentioning that it's not like him. Joshua Sanders asks if he has something to say. Seta talks about the offer he made him after suddenly visiting before the master battle, the offer to stop Evergrant in exchange for helping him become the Empire. He suggests changing the terms, apologizing for this, and expressing his desire to end the matter with Evergrant with his own hands. If allowed to do that, he mentions having a deep grudge against Evergrant as well. Joshua Sanders agrees, saying sure, go ahead, but in return, he has a condition too. Join the night order that his subordinates have formed, and he will pay him a salary as well. Setter responds, saying that it's unexpected but fine, he will take it. He adds that there's no guarantee that eliminating Evergrant will return the magic tower to what it used to be. He is fine with having another job as a backup, so they have an agreement. Joshua Sanders points at Seta and instructs the others to meet the newest member of the Gold Spirit Knight and take good care of him as his senior. Kane agrees, promising to look after him as his senior. He formally welcomes Seta to the Gold Spirit Knight Order as a 7th class member. The dragon interjects, urging them to finish their chit-chat as they are about to reach their destination, the Forest of Elves.